So I want to thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Matt Young. I'm the Director of Community Services for the City of Mansfield. I want to recognize a few other people here as well. Starting here in the front, our Chief Financial Officer, Troy Lastina. Our Communications Manager, Andrew, is running, oh, there he is right at the camera right there. Shelley Landers, Deputy City Manager. In the back, we have Teresa Cohagen, Director of Community Engagement, and Gary Cardinelli just snuck in right there too from our Finance Department, and I think Ann Beck from our Marketing and Communications Manager on the Parks and Recreation Department is out front as well. So tonight we're going to go through and provide some information on our upcoming bond election scheduled for May the 7th. I want to provide hopefully as much information as possible and at least some time at the end to answer any questions that you might have to go through the process. If you're not aware, we have 5 propositions on the ballot. There we go. Starting off with the Veterans Memorial, a joint recreation center and library, some parks and athletic complexes, linear trail expansion, and Miracle League Field. So we'll go through each one of these, provide some images, some plans, and some cost estimates for you. Starting off with the Veterans Memorial, each one of these projects were presented to a Citizens Bond Committee over the last 6 months, recommended by City Council. The total of these 5 projects and the presentations to that group were about 3 hours, and so we're not going to spend 3 hours tonight. We're going to try to get through this in about 45 minutes in total and leave some time for questions. So there's a lot more information and slides on each one of these. If you're interested, and we can direct you to the city website on more in-depth presentations or answer any questions and send anything to you afterwards. But Veterans Memorial has been a project that's been in the works for about 4 years now. It started with a group of citizens working in conjunction with the City Council's Public Memorial Subcommittee to identify a location. There was a need for a Veterans Memorial in the city, and so they went through a process and to look at locations. Ultimately, it landed on Julian Park, which is not far from City Hall across the street. It's a piece of land, it's the city's oldest park, named after one of our co-founders. As you can see, the MPFDC, or corporation, purchased 3 acres in 2018 to kind of make this property whole. Later that year is when the committee started working on a location and thought this would work out the best. They worked with the Landscape Architecture School at UT Arlington to identify some concepts and what is possible on a site like this. And ultimately, last spring, the City Council said, all right, so this is a project we want to consider for a future bond election. Staff, work with a consultant, develop an actual concept, and give us some cost estimates so we can put this in front of voters. So this is a zoomed in version of the site up front. Currently, we have Serenity Gardens and an existing playground. So if this project is approved by voters and we move forward, this playground would get repurposed down the street to James McKnight Park West, in addition to some other park amenities that we would add to that. And so the majority of the improvements would all happen up in the front part along Broad Street. So we're going to go through the master plan. Again, a much quicker version of this, but to just let you know, there would be improvements to Serenity Gardens down here on the bottom yellow. Park monument sign, a pond is part of this proposed plan, an event plaza, memorial plaza and pavilion, a flagpole plaza, some scenic overlooks along the loop trail, as well as some added parking, restroom facility, kiosk with nodes, and to serve as a trailhead for a future connection to the Walnut Creek Linear Park system. So we'll go through each one of these. First off with Serenity Gardens, this is existing on site. We want to do a little bit of upgrades and renovations to this area of the park, as well as add restrooms that will serve this park and the memorial. The park monument sign on the corner of Magnolia and Broad is envisioned to be like what you see along our linear trail system, as well as along the highway. So something that signifies you're at your destination. So something along the same theme. The pond, so right now there's a kind of a creek or a drainage tributary that runs through the middle of Julian Park with some sloping terrain. And so the vision of the committee and the foundation was to kind of capture that water and turn it into a feature that will serve the plaza. And so the pictures on the right are reminiscent. These are from Chandler Park. So kind of a stone-lined pond with potential little crossing, a bridge that would come from the pond over to the event plaza. Or it could be something like the Corten Steel Bridge that you see in some of our other parks. So something along that nature. The event plaza envisioned to be kind of a large, typical plaza that you would see, a lot of stone. Because of the terrain within Julian Park kind of sloping down to this area, The committee's vision was to kind of incorporate some terrace seating into the slope of the property for events and ceremonies that take place here. And then the rest of the kind of the grassy area in the park could be overflow, so additional spectators could sit under the shade trees beyond this terrace seating. Directly behind that would be flagpoles. The committee envisioned a national, state, city flag and a POW MIA flag to take place here in the backdrop of the event plaza. As well as the loop trail with these scenic overlooks. And so this is what you see at Elmore Oliver Nature Park. And so there's really a nice, beautiful forest at Julian Field Park. And so the thought was to have a loop trail and create these overlooks where people could experience kind of the drainage area, the trib that runs through the middle of it, but stay above the tree level, have nice looks down into this and be safe. So something similar to what you find at Oliver Nature Park. Okay, so the Memorial Plaza. This is a secondary plaza from the main event plaza up front. So the committee really wanted to have a place that was back off the road, tucked back into the woods so that people could go be a little bit quieter and reflect on their loved ones that may have served our country. And so this would be a plaza that would have the branches, the 7 branches of the military, with a pylon with their insignia and their motto and included on the different pylons. You'll see an image here in a second, as well as a pavilion. So a covered area when you have large events for people to get out of the sun into a shaded area. And so their thought was that they would also like to include QR codes. It's kind of a new standard. So instead of having huge signs all throughout the park, you could have summaries and a QR code where people wanted to learn more about an individual or a conflict or whatever might be included in the park in the future. All that information would be maintained on the city's website, but you could access it with a QR code on your phone and instantly be taken there for more information. The pavilion. So getting back to our history, the thought here was to take the area of the existing park and include a pavilion back in this area. Again, kind of tucked back towards the woods. Something large, similar to this, but not exactly like that, but a large structure, maybe some stone columns, incorporating potentially some memorial walls on the backside of the pavilion. But they really wanted to tie back to our history. This is Memorial Hall that existed right across the street, and said, well, we don't really want an enclosed structure like this, but could we make the pavilion look like this in some way? So tying back to our history with a hexagonal structure, one very similar to this still exists in the city of Waxahachie at Bicentennial Park. So you can see an image. This is an old settlers reunion from 1937 from Mansfield history. And so the thought from this is that you see the wooden underdecking that existed in this memorial hall. And so could the pavilion, the underside of that pavilion, mimic that with the wooden decking and kind of tie back to our roots? Again, along the Memorial Plaza that's tied back there, so the committee made the decision to recognize the 7 branches that the Department of Defense recognizes. So each one of those would have a pylon around that Memorial Plaza. They liked the black granite look, wanted something that was kind of medium height, 8 to 10 feet or so. Some, you'll go to some cities and counties that have large 30-foot tall structures, and they didn't really want something that overpowering, but they didn't want the small, profile 2-foot kind of pedestals. They wanted something kind of in the middle. And so these would be something reminiscent like this. This is the kind of look and feel that the committee envisioned for these pylons. A lot of questions about, well, where's everybody going to park? The park doesn't have enough parking spaces, and so you're correct if you have that assumption. But you're really talking about a couple of big events a year. On a daily basis, 50 spaces or so, which is what we would have here, would accommodate a normal crowd for visitation. But for large events, you can't build enough spaces. And so the thought would be here that in the red shaded areas that are right around City Hall, the MAC, the library, Tarrant County, we have 700 spaces. So we would work on shuttling. Some people would probably just park and walk. But we would work on shuttles for people for these large events a couple of times a year, working with police and fire and our public safety staff to make that happen. And if that wasn't even enough for 700, MISD has more than 1,000 more spaces down the street. So that's how most cities handle large events when you don't have enough surface parking, is you just work on shuttling. And luckily we have enough spaces close by to make that happen. So this is just the kind of final version of the master plan that was created, a little prettier version. I also want to reference that along this entire journey over the last 4 years, our council subcommittee has been working with our Veterans Memorial Foundation and Tribute Foundation. Tim is a president. He's here in the audience here tonight. We have executed a memorandum of understanding between the city and the foundation. You can see their mission to provide educational opportunities and recognition of efforts of personnel and their service to the country from all branches. One of their tasks will be to establish policies and procedures for how to review proposed amendments and inclusion in future phases of the memorial. So right now, this project is proposed to include and recognize the 7 branches, but it does not include war conflicts. That's not part of this project. But the park has definitely enough space to add future statues, memorials, to recognize conflicts, individuals as they're proposed. And so part of the foundation's task will be to develop policies and procedures for how you review a proposal and then make recommendations to the city council, who ultimately will decide what gets put into the park in the future. So that's part of the partnership with the foundation. And then they also are going to be helping raise money for improvements and repairs and maintenance of the facility once it's constructed. So if voters approve this proposition, foundation will be a big partner with the city in maintaining this going forward. Okay, Proposition B, $78 million for a joint recreation center and library. We went through a process, a 6 to 8 month process this last year on a feasibility study. This has been the #1 priority for the last 12 years in 2 different master plans for the Parks and Recreation Department. And so when we approached City Council, this was another project that they wanted to put in front of voters and say, do you want to build this? But we needed to find out what to put in it. And so we gathered public input. We tried to determine what size of a facility to propose, what kind of spaces and programs we'd want to participate in this facility, developed some generalized floor plans. We looked at the operational and staffing requirements to manage a facility like that, develop a project schedule, and then created some site and building renderings to kind of give people an idea of what it could look like. And so we're going to share a very, very summarized version of those findings. The top priorities from all that resident feedback, from surveys, focus groups, and public meetings that we conducted last summer, were they want an indoor walking, jogging track, want a variety of fitness options, different types of pools for lap swimming and free play, and play structures for kids, a lazy river. On the library side, wanted a large dedicated children's collection and spaces. Wanted the use of technology with STEM and a makerspace, and we'll show you some images here in a minute of that. The entire building, the public told us we want it to be flexible, to go with the trends and what is going on in today's world, and make sure these spaces can be repurposed as needed, and provide a lot of free play area and gathering and social connections. Loud and clear through our entire Parks Master Plan process and carried through this feasibility is that people want places to hang out together. They want to be able to socialize with their friends and their family. And so they wanted to see spaces like that in this building. And then the connection to the linear trail and integrating the indoors and the outdoors. Okay, so the proposed location for this is about as centrally located as you can find within the city. It's 12 acres of city-owned property, has adequate space and for a variety of amenities, surrounded by food and entertainment. The shops are broad, and you'll see an aerial map here in just a second. And it is located along our most recent phase of the Walnut Creek Linear Trail System. This is an aerial map, so you can kind of see where James McKnight Park East, where our girls softball program participates, the field house, the Star Center, as you can see, it's kind of right behind that. Phase 2 of the shops at Broad is in that darker blue color there, and then the yellow line is the most recent 1.2 miles of Walnut Creek Linear Trail. So that's kind of an overview of the proposed location, and what we looked at on the feasibility study is if this would work for this project. So the proposed spaces and amenity, just as an overview, there's roughly 22,000 square feet of library program space that includes all of our collections. It would have a maker space, media, computers, multi-generational programs, quiet study and reading rooms, book handling and storage, all the necessary things. On the recreation side, 76,000 square feet for fitness, including a track, cardio and weight equipment, group fitness spaces. Aquatics, including a leisure pool, lap lanes, slides, play structures, and locker rooms. On the recreation side, gymnasium, games area, child watch, party rooms, and storage. And then the unique concept with this project is really the shared spaces. So instead of building a standalone library or a standalone recreation center that both had similar spaces, this project envisions sharing those spaces as much as possible. So 27,000 square feet in an event hall, 300 person with a stage, multi-purpose classrooms and conference rooms that would be shared by all of the departments in this building, indoor playground, a cafe or a small marketplace, catering, cooking, kitchen, and storage. And then finally on the outdoor spaces, trying to take advantage of the building and the second floor and have some programmable and rentable space for events and programs, as well as taking all the storm drainage through the shops at Broad that run through this site, capturing it as a water feature, and then having some outdoor program and event space around that pond. And again, connection to the linear trail. So overall, this is roughly 125,000 square feet of space. So when we drill down into those spaces on the library side, what you see, obviously collections. You're gonna have your books for your children, teens, and adults. Teen spaces is definitely a need. On our Parks and Recreation Master Plan 2 years ago, it was the second highest priority in the city behind trails, was we need things for our teens to do. It was also the second lowest satisfaction. So what that told us was we need these and we're doing a really bad job. So that comes to the top of the list. So including spaces for teens and programming and esports, things like that, would be a priority for a facility like this. The top right is a makerspace. So if you don't know what that is, it's a trend in both recreation centers and libraries in today's world. Has tools, 3D printers. It's just a commonplace for idea generation and collaboration with teens and adults. HOAs get together and plan things. Integration of technology and interactive tools in storytelling and engaging kids that way. And you see in the bottom right, so a lot of quiet study areas, people working from home more, so they want to come to a public facility, take advantage of the Wi-Fi and work from home in a space like this. And on that very far right, that's actually a laptop checkout station. So instead of having 100 computers in a traditional library, today you can actually put in your credit card, just check out a laptop, do your work there, and check it back in before you leave. So that's a different kind of technology in today's libraries. On the recreation side, so that top picture on the left is an adventure track, so multi-level throughout the building. Gaming areas, again, cardio and fitness areas, rooms that are multi-purpose, so you see fitness going on at one time, it gets transferred over to tap and ballet or karate classes later on. Obviously a gymnasium, and then that bottom right you see the outside opening up, and so that's really trying to do that both on the outside of the building and also on the inside, so you can open up programmable rooms into your lobby and your foyer spaces for different kind of events and classes. The aquatic side, so again, flat water that you can do program like aqua aerobics, but you also use it for lap lanes. Again, interactive play structures for the kids, slides, and then on that bottom right you see how those lap lanes are turned into kind of a special event venue. So this is like a dive-in movie in process. So lots of ways to use your various water sources, including a lazy river here on your bottom left picture. And then the shared spaces. So the event hall, a lot of these little nooks and crannies, and that's really the way today's facilities are being designed. A lot of people just want a space and their child's in there in a swim lesson. They don't want to go in the natatorium where it's 85 degrees and humid. They want to hang out outside. So providing little areas like these two center pictures where you can either choose to go get a book in the library and come and hang out while your kid's in a class, or maybe you're wanting to do work from home and you don't want to be at home and you want to come into an environment like this or take advantage while you've got a family member participating in an event. Party rooms and training rooms, indoor playground, and again a cafe marketplace. So those are all part of the shared spaces in this proposed facility. So again, if we were to build all of those spaces, 22,000 square feet of library and all those community spaces, we'd be looking at roughly 49,000 square foot library with everything that's being proposed. And so when you look at some of the surrounding cities of comparable, so you see Euless is about 40,000, North Wilson Hills, almost identical population to us, 54,000, Allen's 54,000. So we're right in line with the spaces here. What our library department would be able to program and use, we fall right in line with that. And similarly on the recreation side, so you have all this recreation space, but getting to take advantage of that shared community space, you're roughly 103,000 square foot recreation center. And you compare us to some other cities that with some recent facilities, from Burleson that doesn't have quite as much, but at 50,000 square feet. Louisville's new facility, South Lake is 105, all the way up to Grand Prairie Epic, which is 140,000. It's not your traditional rec center, so it's quite large. The Epic is a good name. It is a very, very large facility. But you can see it kind of puts us right in line with what other cities, when we hear, why can't we have the Epic? Why can't we have what South Lake has? The number of spaces that we're proposing here would put us in line with what other cities are doing. So if you built these two facilities all by themselves with these spaces, you're looking at about 150,000 square feet and $101 million. And so this concept is trying to take advantage of those duplicated spaces and share them. And so by doing that, you reduce the square feet to 125,000 square feet and a cost of $78 million. So that's how you get to that with all of those proposed spaces. Just a couple images to run through. Again, this has not been designed. These are only conceptual images to make sure that what the spaces that we heard the public said they wanted, and after we sized them, would a building like this fit on the site that we were talking about. So floor plan, you see on the top end of the graphic, that's more of your membership area. So your gymnasium, your fitness, your aquatics, your workout areas. In the middle is more of the free and open space of the lobby. So you have your playground, your shared gaming areas, a potential cafe in the middle. And then as you come down towards the bottom of the graphic, that's where your event hall, all of your shared program rooms and classrooms, your library collections, and then towards the very bottom is the quieter area of the building. So getting further away from the activities where you have your study rooms and your quiet reading rooms. As you move upstairs, you have your fitness area, and then you have the adventure track that circles around. And with all of these kind of amenities, the unique thing that's being proposed here is that this indoor track would give you views into every one of these spaces. So most places will have a track that circles a gym, and you would have views into that. But you'd also have views into the fitness area, into the aquatics area, and even into the library area, which I've never really even heard of. So that would be a unique experience for our residents to take advantage of. And the adventure track just means it's multi-level. And so you could, if you just want to walk on a level surface, you would have the option to do that loop on the second floor. If you wanted to go up and down inclines, that's where, as it comes around the gymnasium, it's a little hard to tell, but it actually slopes down and then comes back up. And so if you wanted a little more rigorous workout, you could choose that route. And then again, the pictures on the right would reference the ability to take advantage of that second floor with some rooftop fitness and rooftop events. A couple of conceptual images of what the building could look like. Again, this is from Star Center Drive looking towards the building. This is kind of the outdoor area where the pond would take place with some outdoor events, and even food trucks could line that, and there's a nighttime vision. It goes quickly there to kind of see, you can kind of see the rooftop areas on the second floor that would be available for rentals and programs. A view from the front of the building as you're going in. You see the gymnasium, the large structure on the left. It's a little easier at nighttime, so you can kind of see that track, how it kind of inclines up. And so that loop would be multi-level, and it's actually outside the normal shell of the gymnasium. So it's kind of a deck. And so you're actually walking outside of the gymnasium, enclosed inside the building, and on the back side of the gym is where our linear trail is at. And so you get to experience the outside. You'd also get to look in on all of the spaces that are being proposed on the inside as you're walking around the track. From the inside, again, you get your membership desk, and then all the area that's open and free to the public in the middle. And then as you go towards the right, the maker space and the program rooms and the library spaces. Taking directly upstairs, looking down, same angle, you can kind of see how the track loops around everything, and the little cafe area that could be included. In the library, again, very open, connecting right off that main lobby with all of our collections and our program rooms in the back. And then again, this has not been designed, but typical amenities you would find here and what the public said they wanted is zero depth entry, play structures for kids, lap lanes are shown here on the right hand side, lazy river on the back, and then slides are on the back. That big blue wall actually has the slide structures outside of the building. So you enter the slide, you loop around the outside, so that's kind of an architectural feature on the outside of the building, and then you daylight back in. That long yellow tube is the run out tube where the slide re-enters the building. And then finally, the event hall. So again, 300 person with a stage. The stage could be closed off, and so it's a separate classroom that can be programmed and accessed from the hallway. That stage also is planned to be opened up to the outside, so if we wanted to have events with the public outside, they could take advantage of this stage for performers. And then the roll top doors. So if you had a wedding reception, you could have an indoor and outdoor event if you chose to do that. Okay, Proposition C, $55 million for parks and athletic complexes. So there's two major components to this. We'll start off with Southwest Community Park. This is obviously southwest area of the city. This is kind of where this property sits right now. Aerial, this is it. You can see this is the red plus of the historic downtown Mansfield, right at Main and Broad Street. We've got several very large residential developments that are underway right now. So, and then one that is coming soon. So you can see thousands of future residents are going to be right around. This is going to be their big park on this side of town. In addition, MISD has 3 planned schools in this area. So we were able to purchase this property in 2019 ahead of the development and plan accordingly. So this proposition would provide the funding to construct the first phase of this to serve these future residents. Okay, so again, this has not been designed. We don't even have a formal master plan, but spatially to show what can fit. 138 acres. So what we kind of envision is that the future Retta Road will bisect this in some way, maybe not exactly as shown because we will have the ability to work with engineering and move that around. But it's essentially a sports complex on half the property and a community park on the other half. So on the sports side, we would relocate our soccer fields from Skinner Sports Complex and our football fields from Chandler Park all here. So we'd have all of our rectangular fields here. We think that's a benefit for both sports because they could each take advantage of those fields as multi-purpose fields. So soccer will tell you they never have enough fields. So if they're having a big tournament, football's not playing, they have a couple extra fields that they could program for their tournament. Similarly, football, if they want to host a big summer camp, they would have the use of all these rectangular soccer fields to program for their camps and clinics. And so putting all our rectangular fields there has some benefits. They could be natural grass or synthetic. We would work with the public and our youth sports associations to kind of tell us what their priorities would be. But it would have all the normal things. We'd have some designated championship fields, concession restrooms. We'd want to add loop trails, playgrounds, pavilions on that side of the complex. And on the other side, again, about 60 acres of that, we would build first phase of a community park. So your traditional playgrounds, pavilions, tennis courts, basketball courts, sand volleyball courts, and pickleball courts. We don't have any outdoor pickleball courts in our inventory. It's the fastest growing trend in the United States, so we need to start inserting these in our parks, and so we would plan to do that as well. And the number of courts would be dictated by what the public says they want, and we'd get as much as we could with our budget. But you can see there's a lot of open space on this plan, and so we would, after completing phase 1, monitor trends, resident growth, and then determine in the future how many more of each one of those we would want to incorporate. And as you can see, we would have the space to do that, as well as any other proposed amenities that might come forward. So this piece of this proposition is $30 million. It includes infrastructure. We don't have utilities to this site now, and we might need to build a little bit of the thoroughfare, so that's why this has got a little bit extra money plugged into it. Then once first phase of Southwest Community Park is built, the soccer and football now have a new home, so we would have the ability at that point to come in at the existing Michael L. Skinner Sports Complex and start redeveloping it. That's one of the challenges is it's 26 years old now, starting to show its age, and we're out of space. We can't accommodate any more fields there, but once soccer would have a new home, we could start redeveloping the existing soccer fields as baseball fields without displacing the current MYBA youth baseball program. And so you can see it opened originally in 1996. It's about 88 acres. It's pretty much all sports fields. It has one way in, one way out. We are trying to work on a second point of entry and exit as a part of a future project, but that is a challenge. And so as you can see in that soccer footprint, that yellow outlined area, you can fit at least 10, probably up to 15 if we wanted to, diamond fields. So new baseball fields in that area. We'd also want to add some other park amenities. So we want to redo the roadway and the parking alignment out there, add a loop trail, open the pond that previously was used for fracking, for gas well drilling, but it has been abandoned, so it's just an amenity now that we'd like to turn into a feature for the public. And then add those other features, so tennis, basketball, sand volleyball, pickleball courts, pavilions, and playgrounds. One of the things we hear frequently from residents is, we don't have any parks east of 360. And so what we'd like to do with this, similar to development of Southwest Community Park, is make it more than just sports fields, so that residents on the east side of town can use this, can call this their park. They can go to the playground, they can go play tennis, they can go play pickleball, shoot hoops, play sand volleyball in this park, because we would have the space with the redevelopment concept to do that. So this piece is 25 million. So between these two, 30 million and 25, that's where the 55 million proposition number comes from. Just some pictures. Some people don't understand or haven't been out there in a while to realize these are the conditions the way they are today. We don't have enough parking, and so often you're parking in the grass or the dirt or the mud. You can see it's 26 years old, so concrete's starting to fail. We need to start redeveloping and reinvesting. The picture on the right is important because this is what our youth group has to put out, signs that say no warm-ups, and you'll see why in just a minute with another picture. But one of the quotes we got from 2018 from our master plan process was, we don't need more right now. We got enough for now. We're going to need more in the future when more people come in. But right now, we just need better. Why can't we go to Burleson, we go to Grapevine, we go to Arlington, and we play on these fabulous facilities, and ours are falling apart. We just need better. So that was kind of one of the themes. So just to let you know, this is kind of the references that have been made. On the left is the entrance to our baseball complex today, and references like Keys Park in Dallas, an entrance into their baseball or their softball complex. We have a lot of teams. So on the left is our soccer complex entrance. We have a lot of teams that travel to Overland Park, Kansas. It is a destination for soccer tournaments. A lot of our teams travel there. So they reference this more than they do complexes in the Metroplex, because they travel to Kansas so much to play soccer. And so this is the complex that they have. And so that when we have that, that's what people are saying, that they want an experience like that. This is our baseball area. So this is the warm-up area that we have right next to our playground, no spectator space. Versus on the right, you see this is Harold Bacchus Park in Frisco. It's a little bit difficult to tell, and I can't show it, but those first areas as you're walking from the bottom in, those are enclosed, dedicated warm-up areas outside of the spectator areas. So this is what today's baseball complexes look like and feel like, and they separate spectators from warm-up areas. And so when our teams go and travel and play in tournaments, this is what they're experiencing, and when they come back, this is what they experience at Skinner. And they said, why can't we have more space so that our balls, whether the kids are warming up, aren't flying into the playground and hitting the little ones. So that's what one of the references we get more frequently. Soccer. So on the left, this is our current soccer complex. You can see the spectator areas kind of in the back with the shade structures. What you don't see are any accessible walkways. So people that are in a walker or a wheelchair don't have a paved surface in order to get to the spectator areas at our complex. And so what you see on the right is more of a modern design of a soccer complex, and landscape architects refer to it as rooms. So they build the rooms of 4 fields with all of the hardscape areas around the outside. So the access to the spectator areas are around the outside of the fences, and the light poles, except for the one right in the middle, you see also are all around the outside. So you keep your infrastructure outside of the room of 4 fields, and that don't get in the way, and it also gives them the ability to change directions of the fields between seasons. Because what you get, especially with soccer and football, is these wear patterns. And so you run back and forth for 4 months, and the turf wears out. We need to let it regrow, and so they flip the direction the next season and let that turf grow back. And so when you design it like this, you can flip those fields within that room and keep the spectators on the outside perimeter and give them an accessible route to get there to watch their kids and grandkids. And then this is our restroom concession building currently at the complex. On the right, another big tournament venue in Louisville, Kentucky. A lot of our teams have gone there. And so you see a very large structure with a large plaza, so some overhanging areas for you to dine under the shade, as well as some tables surrounding the lots of plaza area there. And then the bottom picture is a view from the field looking back to it. You can see it's actually two-story with a second level tier. So a lot of room for spectators and tournament organizers especially can hang out under that second level and watch all the fields in the shaded area. And then finally, one of the things that we get referenced quite a bit is just theming. A lot of people go to Bicentennial Park in South Lake and play ball there, or Chisenhall Fields in Burleson. And so what you see in these complexes is that same red brick. This is the playground in the park there, but every entrance to every baseball field, every amenity within Bicentennial Park has the same look and feel. Same thing at Chisenhall. You find that theme throughout the complex, and that's something we just don't have in our current facilities. Proposition D, $10.5 million for linear trail expansion. This is our trail master plan. I say it all the time, it kind of looks like spaghetti thrown on a map. A lot of lines, a lot of colors, a lot of different types of trails that need to be implemented to achieve this master plan. But what's being proposed in this bond election are two critical components, and that is completing the Walnut Creek linear trail system, the yellow bright line from east to western city limits, and then the little orange piece coming off of that is the next phase of the Pond Branch linear trail in historic downtown Mansfield. So just a couple of quick slides. This is the full 10 miles of Walnut Creek. You can see certain phases that are grayed out at the top. Phase 1, 2B, and 3A have all been completed. Phase 2A is going through Oliver Nature Park and has already been authorized for funding as a part of the MPFDC. So the bottom 4 are the segments that we need funding for in order to move forward. So Phase 3B in the middle will close that gap from where the trail currently terminates just through the Shops at Broad all the way to Oliver Nature Park. And then Phase 2C will get us from where we terminate at 360 Tollway to our eastern city limits near Joe Pool Lake. And then Phase 4, where the trail really started at Town Park, all the way to our western city limits. So those 4 segments total $7.5 million of this proposition. And then the other $3 million is for acquisition and development of the extension of Pond Branch in our historic downtown. So probably a lot of people in this room know there's a lot of stuff going on in downtown, a lot of redevelopment, a lot of new businesses moving in, new residential coming in. And so this trail connection would run all the way down to South Main Street and allow a pedestrian access point for all of those people, so you don't have to be in a car to be able to walk to the restaurants and experience everything downtown. And it also gets us to South Main Street, which will eventually connect into our southern linear trail network. So that project we talked about at the Southwest Community Park would be tied in through this trail network. Then finally, Proposition E, $5 million for a Miracle League field. So if you're not familiar with this is what a typical field looks like. This is Randall Mill Park in Arlington. So it's a small field, it's about the size of a T-ball, but it's a synthetic turf and barrier free. And so what it enables you to do is for kids, especially in wheeled devices, wheelchairs and walkers, can't play on a regular baseball field. Just the lips and the loose soils and the grass are hazards, and they can't participate. And so this facility actually takes away those barriers, allows them to participate and take advantage of a team sport that they traditionally would not be able to do. Excuse me. So you can see some of the pictures and experiences. It is a very unique program, and Arlington's program right now, of all of they ran some numbers for us, and so Mansfield has the 3rd highest number of participants in their program right now. So obviously Arlington, that's their market, and Fort Worth. But outside of that, we have more people driving 45 minutes to North Arlington to participate of the 50 or 60 cities that they have participants that are registered. So when we reached out to them and said, do you think there would be a need here? They definitely agreed and said, yeah, you have a large amount of people that participate, and more that probably would if you made it closer to home. So a couple of ideas. If this proposition was approved by voters, what we want to do is work with our families with special needs children and kind of look at a couple of options for what would be the best location. One of them would be McLennan Park East. It would be taking out our large existing baseball field at this location replacing it with the synthetic turf field for Miracle Field, as well as a medium-sized baseball. A lot of the kids that play in Miracle League don't have physical challenges. Some of them it's just more of mental, and they want to play and have the ability physically to play on a larger field. And so they actually utilize both fields as a part of their program. And a lot want to kind of age up through the system and move on and feel like they've progressed to that next level. And so we would still have a traditional baseball field for their program, as well as our Mansfield Youth Baseball that could run their leagues and practices out of. We would replace the 28-year-old playground that exists right there now today with a larger, barrier-free, inclusive playground, a large concession restroom building and event pavilion. We'd like to add a loop trail that this park currently doesn't have, as well as tying in the future to Broad Street and our future linear trail system that will run through McLennan Park West, and then again down to that Southwest Community Park that we referenced a couple of projects ago, and then expanded parking to accommodate all of that. The other alternative would be if Proposition C passes and we do move football in the future out there, it would give us the ability to repurpose some or portions of Chandler Park. And so it would be just a completely different experience for residents. And so we'd want our special needs family to kind of give some input. This one's easier to get to because it's at the intersection of Debbie and Walnut Creek Drive. So it's easier to get to, but it's a lot busier. There's more to do. And so when you're going with your special needs child to play baseball on a Saturday, would you want to be able to take advantage of the pond and the splash pad and the tennis courts and everything else at Chandler Park for more of a family experience? Or would you like the more kind of tucked away, serene environment that McLennan Park East has? So we have some options if voters approve of this proposition to work this into one of our existing parks going forward. Okay, so implementation schedule. If voters approve any or all of the 5 propositions, we would expect to begin design this summer on any or all of them. So just for each one, so if you look at the Veterans Memorial, we would expect design to begin this summer. It's about a year process, 9 months for design and then bidding and requirements. So we would expect construction to begin in summer of 2023 with the goal to have this done by fall of 2024, hopefully by Veterans Day for the first big event, Tim. Miracle League Field, a very similar schedule would be expected. Southwest Community Park, very large new park, and so we would start design immediately, construction starting fall of 2023, and then completion probably spring of 25. The Rec Center Library project, very large project, so we're talking minimum 3 years from started design to opening day of that, but starting as quick as possible with the schedule. Multiple sections of the trail, so you can see those timelines, and then Skinner Sports Complex, because it is dependent on moving soccer out in that first phase of Southwest Community Park. We would stagger, so design and construction wouldn't start until we're nearing completion of construction of Southwest Community Park, so that we would be prepared as soon as that's done to start construction here, but it would be behind by about 2 years. So in total, you're looking at a 5-year bond program if for all 5 projects if they were approved. This is just a snapshot of our interest rates over the last 20 years. I'll get to this, our tax base. So the assumptions that are being made for all of these estimations have a term of 2 to 40 years. Typically the city issues bonds on a 20-year term, so I think that's what we're expecting to do on any of these if they're approved by voters. So when the tax base goes down, the same tax rate for prior year produces fewer dollars. Tax goes up, same rate produces more dollars. That's kind of the simple explanation of our tax base. This is our view of the last 10 years of our annual growth, 6.8%. You can see it varies, and we had some, over the last 20 years, a couple of interesting, with 9/11 and 2008 recession and through all of that, but you can see very consistent returns of about 6.8% over the last 10 years, some very high. And then 2021, the one thing to note here, the reason it went down is that's the year the council approved a 10% homestead exemption. So the value went down. It's not that anything happened in the economy or anything happened locally. It's just that our tax base went down because the homestead exemption was granted to Mansfield residents. So some assumptions for these bond programs is that over the next 5 years, we have about a 3.2% growth, and then after that, a 0% growth. So a very conservative approach to this, trying to make sure that if the worst case thing happened to the economy, to the world, that we're not putting ourselves in a bind. So very conservative. So while we've experienced 6.8% over the last decade, we're only doing a 3.25% increase growth over the next 5 years and 0% after that. Very likely that it would be stronger than that, but again, we're trying to be very conservative with our revenue projections for the basis of this bond program. So I know a very small print. This presentation and recording will be on the website. If you haven't seen these charts that have been shared with the bond committee and the council before, they're on the website, but we will make them available to anybody. But it breaks down every one of the projects and what the estimated tax rate impact, trying to make it to where you can do the math for what the value of your home is. And so each one of them going down. The first two, we made the assumption that they would be issued in multiple years in 22 and 24. The rest of them in all in 22. So you can see for the interest rate column, again, a much higher interest rate than what we have been paying on our bond debt. But we want to be conservative and assume that if inflation goes up and interest rates go up, that we're estimating a higher cost than what we have been paying for several years on our debt issuance. The annual cost of $100,000 kind of right in the middle for each one of those. And so if you have a $300,000 home, multiply that times 3. That's kind of how to give everybody an idea of what the impact would be for them in their situation. But the debt won't be issued at one time. This is what we would expect for the 5 projects, and that we would issue design money for all of the projects immediately to get them all going. But for example, the Veterans Memorial, year 2 is when we would expect to issue construction money. So we wouldn't issue everything up front because we don't need it up front. We only issue what would be necessary for that stage of the project. Recreation Center and Library, you can see we would issue design and all the other soft cost stuff up front that would be necessary to get the project going, but it would be 18 months later before we'd be ready for construction. So that's when we would issue debt for that. And then the contingency and all the furniture and fixtures and site work would be the last piece. Our parks and athletic complexes, because there's 2 projects, you can see design and construction staggered over 18 months, and then coming in with the second project in years 4 and 5, and then our trail and our miracle field. So that $155.5 million for all 5 projects would be implemented over 5 years, regardless of which ones are approved by voters. Okay, so just as a reminder, Election Day is May the 7th. Early voting starts April 25th through May the 3rd, and you can get all this information and much more on our website at mansfield2022.com.